Hey guys, Wayne here from What Should I Play, and today I wanted to share some memories with you and tell you why you should play Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. What many people might not know is that after the release of Return of the Jedi, there was a huge lull in the popularity of Star Wars. The additional media that came out was of very mixed quality since it came from so many different sources. There was continuity and plot hole errors all over the place. In the early 90s, Lucasfilm really had a massive push to continue on the Star Wars franchise in a meaningful way, and this they called the Expanded Universe. You can really mark the beginning of this with Timothy Zahn's The Thrawn Trilogy, which were 3 books released in 1991, 1992, and 1993. And at the time, they were so popular and well written that many people thought they would be the next trilogy of films. Before my age reached double digits, I wasn't too interested in reading novels. So my first experience with the Expanded Universe was the release of Kenner's The Power of the Force action figures in 1995. These were the first released Star Wars action figures in over 10 years, so the hype behind them was humongous. Since G.I. Joe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were just winding down, this was the perfect jumping in point for my brother and I. The original trilogy and the figures had hooked us, and at this point we were all in on Star Wars. As the hype was beginning for The Phantom Menace, Lucasfilm released another project that piqued our interest. The 1996 release of Shadows of the Empire was the closest thing that we had to a film release. This project not only included the game, but also a novel, comic books, action figures, and even a soundtrack. Back in those days, we weren't really aware of release dates, so Christmas had come and gone before we knew this game was even out. That spring, we rented it so many times that our parents started to get fed up and finally caved and decided to buy it for us. But that's not where the story ends. See, my brother and I had this bad habit of whenever we were going anywhere, we would fight over who would sit in the front seat of the car. It was a bad habit, I know. We were kids and neither one of us should have actually been sitting there. But nonetheless, we always fought over it. So this day that we were planning on going, my dad came home from work and went inside to change, and my brother and I, hyped up of anxious energy, ran out to get in the car. And I don't know if it was the extra energy or the excitement over getting a new game, we fought over the front seat of the car. Punching, kicking, shoving, it was an all-out brawl. By the time my dad came out to drive us, we were both in a lot of pain, but we sucked it up and got in our seats. So I don't know what it was, whether I was hurting too much or I wanted to rat my brother out, but before we even got around the block, I confessed to my dad that we had this big knockdown, drag-out fight. And I think he was a little stunned that I confessed it to him at that point, because he didn't know what to say for a minute. He just slowly turned the car around and drove back home. There was no way we were going to get the game if we were behaving like that. You know, it's funny. I remember so vividly not getting the game that day that I don't even remember the weeks or months later when we actually did get it. Even though Shadows of the Empire was subject to the first-gen 3D camera plague, it had everything that you would want from a Star Wars game. It had cameos from memorable characters like Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett. It had a race on skiff bikes mimicking the speeder bike pursuit on the moon of Endor. There was a space battle in the Millennium Falcon analog, the Outrider, and you even got to participate in the Battle of Hoth. And about that, in just about every Star Wars game where you pilot a ship, you inevitably go up against AT-ATs in a snowspeeder. In most games, to destroy the AT-ATs, you're forced into a cinematic camera angle to rope up their legs using the harpooning tow cable method popularized in the movie. This never works right. The perspective they give you is terrible, and I always end up crashing repeatedly into the legs of the AT-AT. Shadows of the Empire corrects this problem. Though you can lasso the AT-ATs, you can also damage them with your blaster, albeit slowly. But it allows you to get through the level without so many unnecessary deaths. Another thing I liked about this game was that it had mostly new characters. Since I never got to experience the original trilogy, discovering Dash, Lebo, Prince Gizor, and how they fit into the greater Star Wars universe was a ton of fun. And even though the characters were new, there were enough familiar settings and cameos to really make it feel like Star Wars. In all the times I rented it, I could only get through the first few levels before it would have to be returned. I remember reading in Nintendo Power about the fight with Boba Fett, and looked forward to it immensely because who didn't like Boba Fett? Once I finally got the game, I was able to play it enough to get to that fight, and man was it difficult. Not only did you have to square off against Boba Fett with his jetpack, but you also went toe-to-toe with the Slave One. I ended up getting stuck on that fight for quite a while. So anyway, the reason I think you should play this game now is because we're actually going through something quite similar this summer. As we lead up to the premiere of Star Wars The Force Awakens this December, Disney is actually having a huge run-up event called The Journey to the Force Awakens, which is comprised of about 20 books, comic series, animated TV shows, all building hype for this new entry in the Star Wars universe. That's what makes now the perfect time to play Shadows of the Empire. Anyway, that's it for this week. Do you have any memories of Star Wars Shadows of the Empire? Or do you have any memories of games that you rented over and over again? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, and be sure to tune in next time whenever you find yourself asking, what should I play?